Iceberg Tech has just turned 3 years old, reached 48,000 subscribers, and it's Christmas soon. That means I'm feeling festive, grateful, old, tired, and lazy. January will bring a new test rig and new graphics cards and CPUs to review, but in the meantime, I needed some quick and easy content, hence a video of me answering your questions over the top of some Forza gameplay or something. What are your thoughts on the 7500F? Mine arrived from AliExpress the other week. I've got some RAM, I'm just waiting to pick myself up a B650 now, and should have a review in January sometime. What would I do differently if I could go back to when I first started? Cheers for the question, Obnot. Hope you're doing well. I've always structured my videos in the same way, pretty much since day one. It's been cold open, introducing the concept of the video, smash to the title card, elaborate on the topic, test setup, results, conclusion. If I'm better now than I was before, it's in getting the point across more succinctly. I never want to start a video with, hey guys, today I'm going to talk about blah blah blah, because it just seems too vanilla. But I think there's a healthy middle ground between that and long, pretentious diatribes, and I'm trying to find the right balance. How do I feel about modding? I used to love modding. I did a lot of Skyrim modding. I've probably spent more time modding and like making machinima videos of Skyrim than I actually have playing it. And I love the idea of kind of bringing old games into modern graphical standards. And I'm actually making a video about that soon. It might be out by the end of the year. Would I switch to reviewing bigger and fancier stuff? That's a good question. I would, but the problem with YouTube is that once you've carved out a successful niche, the recommendation system, or what they call the algorithm, doesn't really want you deviating from that. Like, videos like this one are different from the usual style of videos that I make, so this video you're watching now probably isn't going to do very well compared to my other videos. That doesn't necessarily mean it's any worse than any of my videos, it just means the algorithm isn't going to push this out to people. So I don't know if shifting my focus to bigger, fancier stuff would necessarily be a good move for the channel overall. I am getting the occasional company approach me with stuff to review nowadays, so if someone wanted to send me a laptop or a pre-built or some new graphics card to test, I would definitely consider doing it, so long as I'm making a review and not an ad. But unless I had the budget and maybe the space to fully commit to being a Paul's Hardware or a Jay's 2 Cents or someone like that, then I think half-heartedly switching would probably do more harm than good. Are there any CPUs or GPUs I won't cover for a reason other than price? I'm not just focused on price, but I also look at usability. I consider CPUs that support AVX2 and GPUs that support DX12 instructions to be like the bare minimum nowadays. I wouldn't recommend CPUs older than Haswell on the Intel side, and I wouldn't recommend GPUs older than GCN2 or Maxwell, so because I don't recommend them, I don't make content about them. AMD CPUs are a different matter. There's kind of this inverse bell curve of price to age. As stuff gets older, it usually gets cheaper, but after a certain point you tend to find that working examples become harder to find, and so their price starts to go up again. Pretty much every AMD chip before Ryzen seems to occupy this weird zone of being massively overpriced for its performance, and good motherboards are just overpriced in general. I get asked to cover Bulldozer sometimes, and as I start to move towards the sort of tech history style of video, then maybe I'd think about doing that, but right now I can't really see a reason to. How long have I been enthused by tech? All my life. I'm an elder millennial born in the early 80s, and I grew up with computers and consoles in the home. As far as being the family tech support, at times, yeah, obviously, but what tends to happen is that family members cotton onto one aspect of your personality and just engage you on that one thing. And for me, that's mostly been photography. I've had family members asking me to recommend cameras and tell them how to stop taking blurry pictures and get photos blown up and stuff. People have been asking me that in my family and my friends circle for like 25 years now. Have I ever bent any pins? Yes. The most recent example would be the Ryzen 5 5600G that used to be in my test rig. The day I got that, I immediately dropped it. I spent a few very sweaty hours with a magnifying glass and some tweezers and a plastic spudger trying to get them all straight again. It worked, in fairness, and yeah, I haven't done it again since. Knock on wood. What do I do with parts once I've finished with them? The standard routine since I started the channel was that I'd buy something to review, and when I'm done I'd sell it to get the next thing. But at the moment I'm kind of holding on to stuff for a little bit longer. Like, I've still got the GTX 1080 Ti. I also have a couple of other cards still. I still have the Radeon 7, I still have the Vega 64, but that's more because I want to make some very specific content with them. I want to revisit HBCC, but again, once I'm done with them, they're going to be sold. How happy am I with the channel's growth? I am over the moon, to be honest. I know subscriber count is a vanity metric and doesn't really affect how much you get paid, but it's still pretty insane to me to think that I have a larger audience than could fit into some British football grounds. I live in Birmingham. We have two main teams, Birmingham City and Aston Villa, and the number of you guys who are subscribed to me couldn't fit in either of their grounds. The Villa Park seats 42,000. If I appeared at Villa Park and every single one of you came, you couldn't all fit. And that's insane to me. I don't think I deserve it. It gets a bit overwhelming if I stop to think about it too long. But yeah, thank you all so much. Is YouTube a full-time income now? Juxtaposing this to the last question, no. Kind of. Of the last 12 months, I think 5 of them have been reasonable. Like, ad revenue alone, anyway, has been reasonable enough to make it worthwhile. The other 7 months have been dreadful. The kind of overall effect is, this year I would have earned more money in a minimum wage job, at least as far as ad revenue is concerned. I wouldn't have any job satisfaction, and it would be possibly bad for my health, but yeah, I could have earned more stacking shelves in a supermarket. Hopefully next year's going to be better. What's my most frustrating video to make and the most rewarding? I think I'd struggle to pick a single example, like just one video I can point to as the most frustrating or most rewarding. What is frustrating is me. Like, I wear multiple hats. I'm the guy who writes the scripts, and I'm the guy who does the testing, and I'm the guy who does the video editing. And the guy who does the video editing occasionally wishes the other two would get their act together. Like, the guy who does the writing will write a funny joke, assuming the guy who does the editing is going to find a video clip that's going to match it perfectly. And the guy who's doing the video editing wishes the guy who'd written the joke could maybe have not written the joke, and maybe the video would still work without the joke. So yeah, it's frustrating to kind of write myself into a corner and then kind of have to edit my way out of it again. As for rewarding, I don't know, whenever a video does well, I guess. I don't have many videos that I don't put effort into, so on the few occasions when I do, and they do well, that's kind of embarrassing. But when a video that takes a lot of effort and time to make gets recognition, even months after it was first released, that's pretty rewarding. Will the lack of good RT and FSR not being as good as DLSS hurt AMD? And will Nvidia have a more true monopoly? No, I don't think so. I think AMD holding onto the console market will make it basically impossible for Nvidia to get a monopoly. As we saw earlier in the year with the whole DLSS not being available in certain games, that kind of shows that if they put their mind to it, AMD could probably suppress a lot of proprietary technologies in games if they wanted to, and if we let them. Even if they don't do that, the need for games to work on PS5 and Series X for at least the next few years is going to restrict RTX, I think. So yeah, I think we don't live in danger of a monopoly, and hopefully we don't live in danger of a duopoly so long as Intel kind of stay the course. How do I choose the music? So for those who don't know, most of the music I use is made by Backing Track, which is a side project of a couple of streamers slash YouTubers. Unfortunately, I can't remember both their names, but the one who I found it from is Epos Vox, who does lots of content for streamers and video editors. I really liked Backing Track stuff when I first heard it, and yeah, I think I've just found a few tracks that really work. How long does it take to make a video, and is it profitable? Usually between 3 and 4 days. So it's 1 day for setup. That's downloading games, downloading patches, getting the hardware set up. Testing is a day, sometimes a day and a half. Sometimes more than that if it's a more complicated video. Then I try and get editing done in a day. Sometimes I'll get up early at like 8 AM, 7 AM, record some audio while it's all quiet. And sometimes that can be done in the same day, sometimes I have to spill over into the next day. As for profitability, if I do one video on each thing that I review, probably not. But if you start to expand, sort of use your initial investment to then springboard other ideas off, then yes, it's not too hard to make videos profitable. What should Intel aim for in Battlemage? A working product would be nice. So if I use Ryzen CPUs as an analogy, I'd like to see them skip Zen Plus and go straight to Zen 2. So I don't particularly want to see Battlemage as just a refinement of Alchemist. You know, I want to see bigger IPC gains, as well as all the refinements. Obviously, we need to see fewer bugs and glitches. We need to see better driver support. I wouldn't mind seeing a 900 series card at the top end. I think it would be good for the whales to kind of be able to look at Intel as a genuine competitor. So people who are going to spend like top flight money, people who are thinking of like an RTX 4080 Super or a 7900 XT, if there were an alternative from Intel, I think in the long run it would do more for their reputation. What does my B-roll setup look like? So I'm currently using a Fujifilm X-T3, mostly with the 18 to 55 kit lens, and I've got a DIY macro setup for the detail shots and CPUs and things like that. That's a 50mm lens on some extension tubes. My background setup is currently a black vinyl roll. I do have a white one, but I don't use it very often. I really should replace that black roll. It's seen better days, if we're being honest. For lighting, I've got 2 LED lights. Well, I've actually got 4, but I use 2 LED lights. The key light is a Interfit 100 watt LED. It's kind of a big monoblock style one with a Bowens mount. And I have it's about a 1.2 meter octabox on there. And that's fantastic. It gives a really nice big soft light source, but it's still very one-directional. So for fill light, I've got a little like 10-inch LED panel off to the side. It is bicolor, but I don't tend to use the bicolor feature very often. It's mostly the white LEDs. And yeah, then I just kind of move around with my camera on a gimbal. I've got a little Tech gimbal, which isn't ideal. It's a little bit on the small side for my camera. I could probably do with upgrading that at some point, because every single shot, even though it's got stabilizer on the lens, it's got the camera on a gimbal, every single shot still needs to be stabilized in post. So I definitely need to upgrade that gimbal at some point. What am I excited for? I'm trying not to be too excited for GTA 6. It looks great. I loved GTA 5, but 6 is going to be at least 2 or 3 years off, at least on PC. And I don't want to buy a console for one game. Well, I don't want to buy a console. I might buy a console. I'm actually considering. What do you guys think? Would you be interested in a PC guy tries a console video? Let me know. As far as technology is concerned, I'm still very much pro ray tracing, and there's no specific RT technology upcoming. I'm just excited to see it getting better and more democratic. Is it worth switching from Pentium 1 with MMX to Pentium 2? Outside of my field of expertise, I'm afraid. I was there. I was a nerd in the 90s and 2000s, but I also have a short memory. So try Phil's computer lab. He knows his stuff. What are my thoughts on the gaming industry? I don't think it's as bad as we'd like to say it is, but it is kind of a mixed bag. On the one hand, you've got companies starting to realise some of the flaws, some of the stuff we've been complaining about, and fixing it. So you're seeing less predatory monetization, you're seeing more instances of people pushing back against it, and people trying to fix bad working conditions, people unionising, things like that. But it does tend to get offset with like massive layoffs, games that are just predatory monetization, games being rushed out to meet a deadline and coming out in worse shape as a result. I'm not feeling too bad about the health of the industry, but yeah, it's a mixed bag. I would say it's in a better state than any other entertainment medium though. It's definitely doing better than cinema and TV, and they're all doing better than music. Music's just dead now. For all the flaws in the gaming industry right now, we are still seeing some of the best games that have been made. 2023 is arguably one of the best years for gaming. I think in retrospect, once we've all got over the issues with early launches and the performance deficit from the scalper pandemic, I think we'll look back a little bit more fondly on 2023. What do I think of Crossfire and SLI? I'm fascinated by them. I made a video earlier in 2023 about SLI, specifically the GTX 690, but more as a kind of a hubris thing. So as a technology, I guess, I don't particularly want to see it come back. I don't think it can come back, even if someone decided to like put the concerted effort in to make SLI and Crossfire a thing again. I think there'd be too much pushback against the idea of not only being expected to buy $1,000 GPUs, but buying more than one. I don't think so, no. It would be quite interesting to see what people did with retired GPU mining rigs. That could be interesting from a YouTube point of view, but real world, no. SLI and Crossfire are dead, and I'm glad. What's the worst rig I own? I only own one fully built PC, well, I have my editing rig and my my Razer Blade 2020, and that's it. I don't keep anything else fully built. Everything gets torn down. I'm not overly nostalgic in the things that I own, so I don't have any of my old PCs. I do have a large number of components right now though, specifically motherboards. I'm kind of building up a little collection. I've got a Gigabyte B550, which is now retired from the testing rig, but I'm going to keep it for later model AM4 stuff. I've got ASRock Z270, an Asus Z390, I've got an Asus X79, a Gigabyte X99, and yeah, I'm always looking to add more. What CPU was in my first computer? So I'm going to read that as it's written, and you said computer, not PC. My first computer was a Commodore 64, which had, let me check, it had a MOS 6510 running at less than 1 megahertz. In terms of my first PC, it had a 25 megahertz 386SX, and the first PC I built for myself had an Athlon XP. I couldn't tell you which model, possibly a 2500 plus. Now that I've switched to AMD, any optimization recommendations? Nothing specific. I've just followed other people's guides, so I've dropped the voltage by like 50 millivolts, turned the power limit up to maximum. I've set minimum frequency as well as a maximum, just because sometimes when I'm CPU testing it, kind of the frequency can drop quite a lot. Was my first GPU NVIDIA or AMD? No, it was a 3DFX Voodoo 2. Although technically it wasn't a GPU, it was a 3D accelerator. Originally you'd have a 2D card and a 3D card, and the 3D card plugged into the 2D. I can't remember what my 2D card was, but the 3D card was a 3D Labs Voodoo 2. Couldn't tell you how much RAM it had, but it was in a little box set with like 4 games. My first GPU was an NVIDIA. I think it was an MX440. Thoughts on X99 versus X299 for gaming? I haven't tried it yet, but Mirconst has been looking at some 2066 Xeons recently, and after watching his videos, I'm a little bit less excited for it than I was. I've been tempted to pick up an X299 board, like a proper one from like Asus or MSI or someone like that, and pick up some i7s and i9s, because I still want to do a first ever i9 video. But looking at Mirconst results, I think I'm a little bit less excited about it. How did I come up with the name Iceberg Tech? I was looking for something that sounded cool and deep. What is it about PC tech that keeps me hooked? I would say, like with lots of hobbies, it's kind of like a sport. You've constantly got a goal to aim towards. In our case, it's benchmark numbers and frames per second and things like that. On the other hand, you've also got an opposition. And the thing about sport is, you can play it forever. There's no end. It just keeps going and going and going, and new generations of stuff just keep becoming more relevant, and old stuff becomes irrelevant. And once you're on the cycle, you just keep going and going and going. If I could be any sandwich, what kind would I be?
Cheeseburger.
What's the cheapest build for AAA games at 30 FPS and 60 FPS multiplayer? I'm sorry, that's a huge question. I think I need more information than that. If you need RT and DX12 Ultimates, you're probably looking at £600, $600, $700. But if you can live without them, probably half that, like £300, $300. But yeah, it depends on lots of factors. Do you consider yourself a pro gamer or a layback gamer? I consider myself to be a lazy bastard who would rather sit in front of YouTube than pick up a controller. Do you pursue any hobbies in your free time, and what are they? This is the hobby. I was a photographer, and computers were the hobby on the side because, you know, I worked in a camera shop, I took photographs for a living, I taught cameras and photography with my colleagues. My dream was to be a photographer. Computers were the hobby. I guess I need a new one now. Why did I start Iceberg, and what does the future hold? I started it because I wanted a job. As I said, I worked in camera retail. I injured myself. I needed a work from home job, and I'm not really qualified for anything work from home, so YouTube just made a kind of sense. I'd been thinking about doing a YouTube channel, a photography YouTube channel, for years, but never really got around to it. And when I finally had a reason to, I didn't want to go into photography on YouTube. Photography was everything to me at the time, so I needed something different. So I started with gaming, but I felt like a bit of an imposter. I was more comfortable talking about the technology and the hardware. So I started a second channel, and that's the one you're watching now. As for the future, currently I'm receiving about 700,000 views a month, and that's an insane number, so I'm just kind of going to casually glide past it and say I'd like to get maybe double that. things would be a little bit more secure if I could be around the 1.5 million views a month mark. What CPU and GPU have I enjoyed reviewing most this year? That's going to come in my year-end video. I'm going to do a tier list. As for reviewing more mobile CPUs and GPUs, I don't know if you know, I've done a bunch of laptop tests. No one watches them. And I don't think it's because no one's interested in laptop videos. I just don't think people come to me for them, or people expect them from me. So I think I'd have to do a lot for the algorithm to start recommending them to people. I'd like to do more laptop and mobile reviews, but the only way it's going to happen is if people send me stuff to review, because I'm not spending any more money on them. Please build the strongest DDR3 PC possible. Maybe? What's that going to be? Haswell on desktop, or actually no, you can get some Skylakes that run on DDR3, can't you? But X79 might make more sense because you get quad channel. I've still got an X79 board. I could maybe do an X79 with like a 1680 V3 and some 2400 speed DDR3 in quad channel. Yeah, I could maybe do that. What was the spec of my first family PC? That was the aforementioned 386 SX25. It had 1 MB of RAM and a 40 MB hard drive. And yes, I did try to upgrade it. I upgraded it to 3 MB of RAM. I did install a sound card. It was a Sound Blaster compatible, which was a bit of a mistake really, because the computer was an Amstrad Mega PC. It was 2 units in one. It was a 386 desktop PC with a Sega Mega Drive or Genesis built into it, and you flip a panel across and it switches from PC mode to Mega Drive mode. You've got a cartridge slot, you've got a couple of controller ports, and the whole thing plugs into a monitor, so you get this stunning image quality compared to plugging into a TV. And it was brilliant, and it was actually the reason Mom bought it for us. I was supposed to have the Mega Drive side, and the PC side was supposed to be for my sister. But I discovered X-Wing and TIE Fighter by LucasArts, and once I got into that, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I was obsessed with those games in particular, and just PC gaming in general. And yeah, when I tried to upgrade it and I installed the sound card, it also disabled the Mega Drive. It was an expensive computer, and I'm sure Mom was very angry. She didn't show it, but yeah, that wasn't my proudest moment. But what the hell, I was like 11 years old. Will AI take over the world and eliminate all humans who don't use NVIDIA GPUs? No, but it might destroy the economy and everybody's jobs. Can you try the i9 290 again with 2023 titles? Yeah, I have an R9 390, an 8GB version. I'm going to be reviewing that next year, possibly February or March time, and I'll definitely be addressing the driver situation. I always test GCN2 cards with Nimes these days, and I still recommend that now. I did a 290X video earlier in the year. I don't know if you saw that. There's not a big difference between the 290 and the 290X. So if you want to see how the 290X did, that video is on the channel. But yeah, the 390 is coming soon. As for the new HEDT CPUs, the answer to that question is always the same. If you have to ask if HEDT is worth the money, then the answer is no. It's like muscle cars and sports cars. They're worse than regular cars in almost every area. Economically, ecologically, practically, and the stuff they're good at is very, very specific and only appeals to certain audiences. But we all think they're cool, and we all love them, and we all wish we could have one. Thoughts on Ampere to Ada Lovelace when compared to Turing to Ampere? As a reviewer, I don't have enough experience with either of them to give a strong opinion. I've had 2 Ampere cards, 3 Turing cards, and no Ada Lovelaces, so I'm not sure I'm qualified. From the outside, I think Ada Lovelace is probably worth avoiding. And if you're looking to upgrade right now, you should probably either stick to Ampere or wait for whatever comes next. Maybe Lovelace Refresh is going to be more generous in terms of value for money, but and if it is, I'll change my mind. But right now, I think I'm pinning my hopes on RTX 50. What's the best value CPU-GPU combo you recommend? Well, I don't like recommending things I haven't used yet, but as I've said already, my next test rig is going to be the Ryzen 5 7500F and a B650, which I think is going to be one of the best value options going forward. Otherwise, yeah, it's still, for me, it's still the Ryzen 5 5600. I don't have any experience personally with 12th or 13th or even 14th gen Intel, but from what I hear, the 12400 is a really good option. As for GPUs, I have tons to recommend. The 5700 XT, the 6700, 6700 XT, RTX 3060 Ti if you can get one for about 200 to 230 quid. Maybe a 3060 if you can get one for under 200 quid. As I said, I don't really recommend any current gen cards, but if I had to pick one, it would have to be an RTX 4070 or higher. I don't think I can recommend anything lower than that. Do I have any jobs besides YouTube, and do I have a background in the tech industry? Nope, I'm full-time on YouTube now. Technically, I am still a self-employed photographer, but that's been a bit quiet for the last few months, and I don't have anything lined up. That is still the backup plan though, so if YouTube crashes and burns, I've got that to turn to, but I'm old and tired and have a bad back, and the idea of dragging my carcass around with a camera and a tripod on my back is just exhausting now. What happened to the A380 that couldn't? Yeah, I took it back, got a replacement, and the new one scores in the low 4000s in Time Spy. It's the same model, it's the ASRock Challenger. So yeah, everyone who said the old one was faulty is probably correct. There should be a full review in January. What's one video you've always wanted to do? I have literally hundreds of text docs full of scripts that never get made, and sometimes it's because they're too ambitious, sometimes it's because it's just a bad idea, sometimes it's because I can't afford them, sometimes it's just because an idea stops being relevant before I have a chance to make the video. The expensive ideas you can usually scale down. So for example, I wanted to remake my 16 versus 32 gigabyte video for DDR5, and that's definitely going to happen, but I have had to scale down my ambitions. I originally wanted to test with GPUs with different amounts of VRAM to see how much that affects system RAM usage, but the only sensible card to do that with is the 4060 Ti, and getting an 8 gig and a 16 gig one of those is just going to cost too much money. It's like 750 quid. Has a GPU or motherboard died? Yes, not recently though. These days it's mostly been power supplies. I had a 1000 watt EVGA unit pop on me last year. That tripped the circuit breaker in the house and gave me a hell of a fright. It didn't do any damage though. In the past I did have a Corsair die and it took almost the whole system with it. I think the CPU and the RAM survived, but the motherboard and the GPU died with it. What do I think of daily driving Linux? About the same as I think about daily driving a bike without a seat. In other words, a pain in the ass. Can I imagine doing YouTube in the long run? Yes, yeah, I want to do it for at least another 4 or 5 years, ideally. Maybe longer than that, we'll see. I do want to expand. I have other ideas. I've talked before about how I want to do video essays and opinion pieces. I don't know whether I'm going to put that on a second channel or whether I'm going to launch them on this channel and maybe move to a second channel later on. But unfortunately, they all kind of sit in the script pile waiting to be made. The main channel's currently taking priority. Do I think AMD should give up on competing with Nvidia and make affordable cards? No. No, I think Nvidia shouldn't be left unchecked. If they're just there coming up with fancy new proprietary tech over and over again at ever increasing prices, I think that's a bad move. I like ray tracing. I want to see it continue to get better, and I do think it has the potential to change the gaming industry for the better, but the only way that's going to happen is if AMD and Intel are there competing with them. What do you do outside of YouTube? F all. Seriously, I've absolutely destroyed my work-life balance. Why do I think people use GTS 450s to scam people? I think the story went that they had a load of old ex-internet cafe stock, and presumably they just knew a guy who could get a hold of a bunch of generic heat sinks, and somehow they made it all work financially. I don't know if anyone made a profit from it, I just know a lot of people made a loss. What would a reasonably priced PC look like in a third world country? I don't know, I've not really looked into it. I imagine there's a lot of factors about buying tech in a third world country that I just wouldn't be aware of. Like tax and import related things that just wouldn't even occur to me. So, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'm not sure how to answer it. What's the most CPU ever created? I'm guessing that's probably one of the new Threadripper Pros, isn't it? 96 cores, overclockable, 350 watt TDP. I don't think there's ever been more CPU than that. Does it snow where I live? Sometimes, not so much these days. It did snow a bit earlier in December, but we'll expect most of it in February, and we do occasionally get it later in the year as well. We occasionally get a bit of snow in March and April, weirdly. The one thing you can always guarantee with the UK is whenever it snows, we will never be prepared for it. Are you planning on adding Genshin to your less demanding test bench? I used to test Genshin back when I started out. It was good for testing out GT 710s and things like that. Yeah, I guess I could bring it back. How much do you hate the new Fortnite season? I haven't played it yet, so I can only assume it's as bad as every other season. I am of course kidding. I like Fortnite, but pretty much only in no build mode and only solo. What's my keyboard size? I have a TKL with red switches, but I think I might move to black because I make too many typos with reds. What is 6x7? 6x7 is a size of medium format film negative, popular in field cameras like the Linhof Technicas and rangefinders like the Fuji Texas Leicas. The most famous 6x7s would be cameras like the Mamiya 7 rangefinder and the RB and RZ series SLRs, which were very common in the studio. Photographers like Rankin used to use them for portrait and fashion photography. 6x7's a similar aspect ratio to a magazine page, so doesn't require as much cropping as 6x6 or 35mm, and being bigger than 35mm you get better tonal gradations and less graininess. The downside to 6x7 is you only get 10 shots on a roll. Also, the gear was big and heavy and expensive. Hope that answered your question. What's your favourite current gen single player game? The only 2023 title I've had time to play so far has been Starfield, which I'm over 100 hours into. I did start a new game plus, but I'm probably going to put that on pause for a bit and switch to something else. Either Alan Wake 2 or probably Jedi Survivor. It's a childhood thing, but I associate Christmas with Star Wars, so I can see myself finally getting around to playing Jedi Survivor over Christmas. Also, as you can see from the background footage, I've been playing a bit of Forza Motorsport on Game Pass. It's okay, not bad. I feel a bit detached from it, and I don't know if that's the game's fault or because I'm playing it on Game Pass. I don't really want to invest too much time and effort into a game that I'm pretty much only renting. Are you in some of the IGN videos? No, but I did watch that video, and the guy, I think, I looked him up, he went to Coventry University, which is about 20 miles from where I live. So far my voice has only appeared on 3 channels, this one, my old one, and I have appeared on Hardware Lab, which they also recreated my voice with AI not long ago, which was done with my permission, but I really hope it doesn't become a regular thing. RGB or no RGB? I like a tasteful amount of RGB. It does look good, and it's also quite a handy visual shorthand to tell you if your computer's on. but I prefer things that don't require additional cables. So LED RAM I'm fine with, but LED fans and CPU coolers, too much of a mess. Do I have any pets? No. I'm allergic to animal hair. It never used to be a problem, but since the pandemic I have been very jealous of people who have cats and dogs, and I've been thinking about getting one, even though I'd have to invest in a shitload of antihistamines. Favourite food? I eat unhealthily, very, very unhealthily. I don't eat anything good for me. I don't eat salads. I eat far too many ready meals, pizzas, pasta, curry, that sort of thing. As for least favourite, eggs. I've never liked eggs. I thought it was a childhood thing. I thought, you know, sometimes you grow out of stuff, and I tried them as an adult and I still don't like eggs. Are you single? Yes, and please don't try and set me up. I'm fine. Favourite, least favourite games and favourite genre of games. So in recent years I really enjoyed Jedi Fallen Order. I liked Cyberpunk 2077, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Yes, that's two games that no one else liked. Honestly, I'm not doing it on purpose. Hades, Disco Elysium, Resident Evil Village, Control. As I said, I just finished my first run in Starfield. As for favourite genre, I don't think I can narrow that down. I like boomer shooters, I like immersive sims, third-person action, arcade racing. It just depends on my mood. I was going to say I don't dislike anything, but I guess I'd say I get most frustrated with battle royales and large-scale shooters. I'm just no good at them, and getting good just takes too long, and I don't have the patience for it, and I don't think other people have patience with me for it. I don't want to look like a noob. Is used 2000 series GPU a good buy now? I heard rumours about bad VRAM. Yeah, I heard something similar. Sometimes you hear one-off rumours and you think, oh, you know, this might be a thing, it might not be a thing, but I've heard it enough now that I'm thinking maybe it is an issue. I don't know if that makes me any more or less likely to recommend RTX 20s, but just be careful before you buy anything. If you can, pay with a credit card so you get some kind of warranty, or, you know, buy from an established retailer or a seller with a good reputation. Apple or Android? Apple. I've owned both over the years. My first smartphone was a iPhone 3GS. I'm now on my fourth iPhone, but I've had, I think, 3 Androids. And yeah, my enduring experience of Android has been just stuff crashing. Should I wait for RTX 5000 series when GTA 6 comes out? Yes. As a general rule, I recommend steering clear of the current gens, so my instinctive answer is yes, but it is worth bearing in mind that the PC release is probably going to be 2026 or later. 5000 series might actually be discontinued by the time GTA 6 comes out. If you are thinking of buying something now to last for at least the next 3 years, 4060 Ti should be good if you're happy to run with upscaling, but if you want to run it without, you're probably looking at a 4080. Do I miss using Nvidia? Kinda. I haven't done much gaming on my main PC recently, it's mostly on my laptop, and that has an RTX 2060 Max-Q, so I haven't really missed the Nvidia in terms of gaming, but the 6900 XT, as well as CPU testing, it's mainly being used in video editing, and it's not great. Performance is fine, rendering performance is surprisingly good, but it really struggles with some of the file formats I use and some of the effects and transitions and layers that I use. I'm going to do a 6 month later revisit in March, but I don't know, we'll see. Do I think the current GPU market will ever have more modern GPUs at affordable prices? Yes, but that's just a guess. I don't have any special secret knowledge or anything. I just think that ignoring the low end hurts the PC gaming industry as a whole, not just people on a budget. By having no cheap GPUs, less people get into PC gaming, and less people getting into PC gaming makes companies less interested in investing in PC gaming, and before long it's back to a console monopoly again. So we don't really want that. We want PC gaming to succeed, and the only way that happens is if we have better prices. Right, my voice is basically gone now. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing. For those of you who stuck through the whole video, I want to offer you all kind of a sneak peek. I've said a few things already about what's coming in the next few weeks. To pad that out a bit, I'm going to be doing a retrospective comparison of the GTX 1080 Ti and Radeon 7, but I'm going to be using my imagination. I'm going to pretend that the Radeon 7 and the GTX 1080 Ti came out at the same time in 2017 and that they were both competitive with each other, and see which of them would have been better at the time. That one should be coming out next week sometime. After that, I'm planning on doing kind of a modding / DIY remastering video, running old games at high resolutions, increasing the texture quality, installing mods to fix UI problems, and looking at the same thing in emulation as well, looking at sprite replacements and texture replacements in emulated games as well. So that should be coming around about Christmas. January isn't nailed down yet, but you can expect some coverage of my new 2024 test PC, and I'll be comparing the Arc A380 on 2 different CPUs. In the meantime, have a happy holiday. Thanks for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.